All right. Hi, Andrei.
Hey, again.
Hi again. Yeah. So we had one episode with one guest with Gareth last week, and basically we discussed this, and we haven't quite covered some of the basics, especially when it comes to Scrum Master. Sorry. So we decided to do a episode with just us two to first of all go through the ins and out of Scrum Master especially, and potentially talk a bit more about your experience. You have more experience than myself in Agile and in this industry. So basically, if it's okay with you, let's just start
Yeah.
straight away. So for the people that really don't have any kind of knowledge of the IT industry, what is Waterfall? What is Agile? What is Scrum?
Oh, I think for the people who do not really know what waterfall is already, most likely you will not encounter waterfall. uh, to put it simply, but to keep it even simpler, the whole idea is just a big project that you only revisit at the end uh, once it's done. So you have a set of requirements, and then you go off, you do your thing, you build the product, and then you come back. That's basically, uh, at least that's what I hear it is, because I never even got the chance to work in waterfall, and that's why I'm thinking most of the companies I know, most of the friends that work in IT, they haven't really done waterfall in quite some time now. Moving forward in time, where Scrum takes place now, basically Scrum is a framework. It's quite a light framework that has a few basic principles. uh, you I mean, defining Scrum, do you want me to define the team? Do you want me to define like the
Uh,
whole Scrum guide, or do
at
you
least
want?
no, at least a quick overview. We'll maybe put links to like the Scrum guide and stuff in like the
Yeah.
comments, so people can access it. But kind of a 10,000 feet view, a 10,000 meter view.
Yeah. So what I would say is Scrum has three main accountabilities. That is a product owner. Product owner's main responsibility, and I'm gonna keep it really simple because there's gonna be a lot more, but the the product owner's responsibility is to determine the flow of value. So that may mean just ordering the backlog, something as easy as that. uh, we have second accountability is Scrum Master. Scrum Master should be there to remove impediments to support the team, and then developer. Developer actually includes everyone else. So developer will include QA, will include BA, UI UX if you have any,
Let's
but they're
and
all
let's explain what those acronyms are. QA,
all right.
quality
Uh,
testing.
yeah. Uh, good, good catch. So QA is quality assurance engineer. Simply put, tester.
Yeah.
As a tester, you test the product that the developers are working on. Uh, BA, business analysis. You will hear functional analysis in other cases. So business analyst, functional analyst, uh, basically look a business analyst looks at a client's needs and kind of transposes them into the developer's language,
Yeah.
more or less.
Kind of a middleman between the client and the developers.
Uh,
Speaks both
without trying,
languages.
yeah, should speak both languages. That's nicely put, because if we get into this into a bit more depth, is not necessarily the middleman, because the PO should be the middleman in
Yeah.
that sense. But yeah, PO, product owner, I think I mentioned.
Yeah.
UI UX, basically UI UX designer will look at wireframes and everything else that's looking at front end and stuff.
All right. Now, what do you think? Basically, I heard this as a very, very simplistic definition of what the difference is, what the roles are, and I just want to get your opinion on this. Product owner focuses on the product, basically the features that it needs to be done, and the order in which they need to be done. Scrum Master focuses kind of on the organization and the team itself, on the internal structure of how the team works together and how the organization is structured, and then the developers do the actual developing of the work.
I mean, it's all true. It's never the full story.
Of course. So this is the very, very simple, if you're like the elevator pitch to what Scrum is.
I mean, you're not wrong. So
Right.
I'll say yes.
There's more to it though.
There's more to it, and it depends. I mean, I cannot even say how much more, because it depends on where you are, what company you work for. Because I've seen Scrum Masters that do more reports, for example, and they do not look at the organization level at all. And I've seen Scrum Masters who are mostly focused outside the team because the team is doing good, and they don't really have that much of an input anymore. So yeah, and developers should also look at the product. I mean, I'm not only do the work, but they should be responsible for all the work that they bring into the sprint. So that's their baby. That needs to happen. That's their choice, how they split the work, how they do it. You basically, as a product owner, you just arrange. Let's say you arrange the order in which you want the product to be built,
Right.
and then what developers are doing is figuring out how to build it, and then when they actually start building it, they build it on their own. So there's no management. There should not be management at that point.
And yeah, in Scrum. Perfect. All right. So let's get into the Scrum Master in more detail, since that's kind of your area of expertise, especially.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Where do I start?
What is a Scrum Master? I guess we kind of covered it in a very, very way, but how would you describe the Scrum Master role if you wanted to put in a little bit more detail than the way that I just described it?
So I use one analogy for the Scrum Master, and I hope I'm not stealing it from anyone. I just came up with this at some point because a lot of my friends used to ask me, "What is it that you're doing exactly?" And whenever I say Scrum Master, it doesn't say much. So the analogy I use is a football coach.
Right.
And why a football coach? I mean, it can be any sport really, but football is one of the most watched sports. So, what a scrum master should do is basically have the team in mind whenever decisions are made. Do not get involved in the day to day stuff. Do not shoot the goal. Do not play any position. Uh, I'm still talking about football,
Yeah.
but do find out each of the players' potential, each of their preferences, where they want to be on the field. Find out the workout drills that are the most effective. Remove any possible impediments. Basically, work for the team, but not in the team.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, you're kind of, yeah. Coach is a good kind of a good analogy. So in that case, is there a difference specifically between an actual, what the title is, agile coach in some places, and a Scrum Master?
Yes, normally it is. I think, in my opinion, all Scrum Masters should be agile coaches.
Right.
Uh, But yeah, basically, Scrum Master is, just by the definition, is defined as a master of Scrum. So you need to work in Scrum to be a Scrum Master. And if you switch to Kanban, you're not, I mean, there's no role Kanban Master. So you're still a Scrum Master. So,
Right.
yeah, basically, I think I prefer the term Agile Coach because it kind of encapsulates a bigger picture that you should be coaching. And you should not only preach Scrum, because that was actually a mistake I did a while back, when I thought Scrum was the best possible thing ever because I did not know anything else, and then I was just preaching Scrum. Now I'm not saying it's not the best. I'm saying that I only knew about Scrum and I was a Scrum Master in Scrum. But as I mentioned, Agile coaches should be overall, should not be focused on just let's do Scrum and let's do this. Like Scrum guide, that's all you need to do. And then I'm guessing we'll also share a link for the Agile Manifesto. Once you take a step back, you zoom out a bit, you understand the Agile principles, and then basically from that point onwards, you focus on delivering value in small increments, get feedback from the customer, from the clients, and then reiterate and keep doing it. And that's basically what you should do as a coach.
I see. All right. So
Well, help the team do it.
so would yeah, and you kind of consider that all Scrum Masters should be agile coaches. Would you then consider an agile coach being a subsection or kind of a subsection of the skill set for a Scrum Master?
I mean, yeah, I should have mentioned that part. Sadly, in the real world, what I'm seeing is happening more often than not is that, yeah, Scrum Master is focused just on the team, and then you have one Scrum Master per two teams, let's say in a company, and then one level above you will have the Agile coach, and the Agile coaches are usually the ones that look outside more teams. So as an Agile coach, you may have two or three Scrum Masters underneath you in a hierarchical sense, but yeah, it's I think it's just it ended up being a hierarchy thing. Although, yeah, in my opinion, it should be both. They should be on the same level.
Yeah, I've also heard the term Scrum of Scrums being used kind of around. Would you kind of associate agile coach being with kind of being almost like a Scrum Master for Scrum Masters?
Uh, Currently, yes, yes and no. Actually, I shouldn't say yes. I should explain it. So to some extent, yes, because you are also helping out the Scrum Masters that are underneath you. And like the best example that I can give is the current structure where I'm working right now, where we have agile coaches. Well, we have a lead agile coach, and then we have agile coaches, and then we have Scrum Masters underneath each of the agile coaches. So basically, as an agile coach, you should coach the Scrum Masters first of all, but you're also looking at the teams. You're also looking at like the whole area that you're working for, uh, and also looking above. So you're also helping out the C level execs and
I see.
everyone else that needs to, I don't know, be in certain meetings or make changes. So yeah,
So a wider view, as it were, kind of a wider. I guess
yeah,
I see. No. All right, fair enough. And how would you then describe the team itself, the Scrum team, works with each other? How does the Scrum Master interact with the developers? Kind of what do the developers get from the Scrum Master? You described it, him being kind of a coach, but more concretely.
yeah. Well, depends on how mature the team is to begin with.
Yeah,
So if a team is just formed, it's not there yet. Obviously, as a Scrum Master, you need to be more involved. What that means is, first of all, you need to have one-to-ones. That's my opinion, first of all.
Yeah.
I just want to say, for now, everything that I'm stating is my opinion. So I usually go for one-to-ones whenever I join a new team, because you need to first of all get to know the people, and the people you work with determine your next approach, because you never come up with, this is my toolbox, these are my strategies, my ways of working,
Yeah.
and take them or leave or something like that.
There's no preset molds that everybody needs to fit
No,
in. Yeah.
no, and that's the fun part, in my opinion, because you discuss with everyone, you see everyone's weaknesses, you see everyone's strengths, and there's a lot, which is actually quite hard now to do, but there's a lot of unsaid stuff, that's what you need to look out for. Because, for example, the most basic example, you have a developer who's really good, but he's an introvert, and he's also perhaps not easily trusting people. Now, he's not going to come up and say, oh, by the way, I'm an introvert and I do not trust you. So you need to figure out, is this person, I don't know, are you always like this? Do you need any support? How can I help? How can we build the trust that we need to function? And how can I help you? And that's actually a question that I use. How can I help you? That's I think I've actually used it in all of my one-to-ones to begin with. Is how can I help you, or what can I do to help, or yeah, along those
I
lines.
see. Yeah. I remember, yeah, you asking Gareth within the last week, how does he build trust? So that, yeah, that seems like it's important, especially for a coach in of any sort, kind of very, very important.
It's vital.
Yeah,
Yeah, building trust is vital if you want to be a scrum master in that team.
I see. Perfect. And right, uh, how do you become a scrum master? If you never had any interaction with IT, you just kind of today you realize, okay, this sounds really cool. I really want to try my hand at this. What would be step one?
Phew. S- I would say, so there's a few ways you can do it, but I would say step one is work in IT.
Right.
uh, it's it's easy to kind of do a certification now. There's 2-day certifications, or you can even do PSM on your own, and then be a Scrum Master officially with a cert in your hand. That doesn't mean that you will be hired as a Scrum
Yeah.
Master. I think to some extent you need to understand, well, to a large extent, but it's not a 100%, but to a large extent, you need to understand what's happening in a software development company and what's happening in the process. Like, if you don't know what the QA does, one example, if you don't know what a developer does, then you will not be able to guide them. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you need to know how to write code. It's a plus. It's always a plus. So
Yeah.
these things are a plus. But yeah, you don't need to do that per se. And actually, most of the Scrum Masters I know in Romania have come from a background of QA, quality assurance tester, because I think that's the way companies that I know in Romania shape up the Scrum Masters. Is as a QA, you're usually the one that holds the stand up. You're usually the one that does the demos, and you talk a lot more. You take that initiative, I guess, in meetings. So then, once you get used to it, Scrum Master is almost like a promotion in that case. Although these roles, I mean, I don't really agree with the hierarchy between them. So I don't really agree that Scrum Master should be a promotion from any of the other roles, but it's how the world functions, at least over here.
Is that how you got into Scrum, Scrum Master, basically position by just doing QA?
Uh, well, I've done QA, and then I was a developer, and then I was a Scrum Master.
Oh, right.
So I've actually tasted both sides, and it's always the other side's fault, by the way. And then yeah, I was a Scrum Master right after being a developer.
I see. How long did it take you? Now I know this is kind of a a case study more than kind of a rule, but just as an example, how long did it take you from your first IT job until first day on the job to you becoming Scrum Master?
I think it was around 3 or 4 years, three and a
4 years.
half. But what I would say, to keep it even more interesting,
Mhm.
it it took me about half a year after I actually found out that the Scrum Master role exists on its own.
Right. So that's interesting. Then when you started, then 2.5 years, you didn't know that the Scrum Master role was a
So
thing.
the yeah, there's a lot to explain here. There's a lot to unfold. So we worked in Scrum. We did have a lead that was usually a QA. Uh, their role was kind of mixed. It was QA slash FA, functional analyst, slash Scrum Master. But it was never officially marked as a Scrum Master. So we had like this web page where you could view all your colleagues. Officially, with that, we did not have any Scrum Masters. You can view like junior QA, mid QA, senior QA, automation engineer, uh, everyone. You can view them, but you cannot. You didn't. We did not have a Scrum Master. So when I found out that that's a possibility to be a Scrum Master, I I went for it.
And
But yeah,
was it company wide that the company itself did not actually have Scrum Masters and only people doing the role, or was it just your team?
so it's company wide, and I think it's mostly for outsourcing companies, because as an outsourcing company, you are selling a full team. Now, for the client, a Scrum Master doesn't mean that much. So if you're a company, let's say in the US right now, or whatever, in the UK, because you're in the UK,
Yeah.
and you wanna hire 5 developers to work on your product, and then you add 2 more testers, and let's say you do not know IT, so you have 7 people working for you. Now, I would only assume, because I don't have a company, but I would only assume it's quite hard to sell another person that improves things.
Right.
Because usually the Scrum Master, I mean, in the Scrum Guide, and I think I've just read this recently, in the Scrum Guide, Scrum Master was never meant to be a full-time role
Yeah,
on its own.
I remember that.
And yeah, and usually as a Scrum Master, you take on 2 teams. And as we mentioned earlier, you may evolve into an agile coach, and then you look outwards a lot as well. And then you try to improve the process throughout the whole company. Now, this obviously doesn't work as well if you're an outsourcing company, because they're selling one team to one client. For example, you're the client. You need just the team. So how can I how can I persuade you to have a Scrum Master with those 7 people?
Yeah, I see. That's a good point. You also can't exactly look outwards because you're in a different company, project
Yeah.
after project.
So the Scrum Master can come. It's most likely to come from within that company, within your
Yeah,
company, than within the company that does the outsourcing.
I see. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. All right. And once you learned about the role and became within 6 months, you said you became a Scrum Master. Was it within that company?
So I started doing the whole mixture of things where you discuss with the client, you're kind of a project manager, and then you're also a scrum master on the side. So it was within the same company, yeah. But as soon as I got into Scrum, I started reading a lot. I started a lot of blogs, a lot of, well, everything I could get my hands on, and then listening to podcasts. And then I realized, wow, I mean, Scrum is huge. Like Agile is huge, and there's so many things you can do. And there were discussions like estimates or no estimates, and we were kind of stuck in the same pattern. So that's when I decided that, yeah, indeed, I want to explore what more you can get out of this role, and I decided to move companies to a place where I can do that.
Oh, I see. Fair enough. All right. Now, from a team member's point of view, what should they kind of expect from a scrum master? And what I mean from that is, how difficult is it for a from a team member, a developer, to actually do their role and then do a scrum master role as well? What kind of, I guess, from a developer's point of view, what is their relationship with the scrum master?
Hmm. Again, again, it's so one thing which I think people will notice, it's never a one answer that fits all
Of
teams.
course.
So it's always depending on the situation, which is really nice because you're always on your toes. So I would say that, first of all, a developer should look to a Scrum Master as their psychologists, almost, because more often than not, you're gonna hear about everyone's problems, and it's good that you're the one to hear about them, because whenever we go up the line, whenever we go to manager level, everyone loses.
Yeah.
So within Scrum, within Agile, we learn to fix our problems on the same level. So even if there's dependencies between teams, even if there's anything, we kind of learn to stick to the same level as much as possible. So as expectations, Scrum Master should be there to help, and depends on how deep you want to get into that, what help means. But what one thing that I would say is that developers count on Scrum Masters for a lot more things than they should. And I've been through that as well, because at some point I was asked to write follow-up notes in every stand-up, which that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
Scrum Masters, don't do it. Do not be a scribe.
Sounds like a
Uh,
snitch to the team, yeah, to the up to for upper management.
yeah. Another thing which I really enforce is for the Scrum Master to not facilitate the daily stand-up. You can be there,
Right. Okay.
do not facilitate it.
That's interesting. Why can you go into that a little bit more? And first of all,
Yeah,
the daily stand up, just to kind of a quick, I don't know, very quick overview what that is, and then why shouldn't the Scrum Master facilitate it?
yeah. So we're gonna actually go all the way back to to what Scrum is, and then I'm just gonna say Scrum has just a few basic events. There's the daily. Well, let's start with the daily planning. What am I doing? So let's start with the sprint planning. So you're working in sprints. That's a one to usually it's a 2 week iteration. So let's go with the default. So you start off a sprint with a sprint planning, where you pick up all of the tickets, well, all of the items that the product owner arranged for you. You pick them up, and you add them into your sprint backlog. That's basically going to be what you're working on for the next 2 weeks, more or less. And then you have the daily stand up, which is a daily meeting. It's in the name. And I think they have actually changed the name from daily stand up to daily sync. Anyway, not getting into way too many details, but daily sync basically is like a mini planning session. And there's a misconception that you have to answer 3 questions like what have you done, what will you do today, and then if you have any objectives. You can ask them if they're focused on the sprint goal. Usually you determine a sprint goal at the end of the sprint planning, by the way. But normally I steer away from patterns like that. I don't want to ask those questions. I want people to come forward with problems if they have any, and I don't care if, let's say, you're working on the same ticket for 4 days. Um, I don't care if you're gonna say the same thing. Don't say it.
Yeah.
Just tell me if you have any issues. If the goal is at risk, basically, and then you will have a refinement session throughout the sprint at some point, which is basically a way that the product owner brings to the team the work that's going to come up in the next sprints, and that those will be refined, those tickets. Towards the end of the sprint, you will have the sprint review where the developers, and I mean the whole team, developers as an accountability, and they're showcasing the entire work that they've done to all of the stakeholders. And there's a sprint retro, which is an important one, where you reflect as a team, just as a team. The developers, they reflect on the previous 2 weeks and what they can improve, what changes need to happen, what to keep doing. So yeah, that's a rough overview.
No, that's
Oh,
yeah, fair enough. And that again, for more detail, we will put links for the Scrum
yeah,
Manifesto in there because it describes all of this in a lot more detail. All
yeah.
right.
And then to come back to to what we
Yeah.
discussed like a while ago. Uh, so facilitating the daily stand up. Sorry, I'm gonna call it the daily sync. Facilitating the daily sync is not supposed to be a Scrum Master's job. So the Scrum Master should ensure that it's happening. It's kept within a 15-minute time frame, time box, and that's basically it.
Right.
why I why I pushed developers to actually facilitate their own stand up is because, let's say we usually walk the board from right to left, and then I go as a scrum master. If I'm facilitating, I go, right, this ticket, all right, this is a new AT, any updates on this one, all right, let's move towards left. These 2 tickets, QA in progress, anything, are you stuck with anything? So as a scrum master, I look at all the tickets, and then usually what happens is the team members are just waiting for their turn.
Hmm.
Now, if I take a step back, and I actually did that, I took a step back, and then everyone else just took turns facilitating. The most amazing thing happened that everyone knew what everyone else was doing to some extent. And then you're a lot more involved and you have a much higher buy in because you will hear someone who perhaps you never spoken to that often. You will hear them, I see you're stuck on this one for 3 days now. Do you need any help? So that right there is like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a win. It's, yeah, it's what agile is all about.
It's yeah, stimulating them to kind of communicate with each other more openly, more proactively. No, fair enough. Okay, perfect. And
So yeah,
yeah, and all right. So that's kind of how you Scrum Master interacts with the developers. The developers kind of what they expect from a Scrum Master. Um, to go kind of back to the basics of, and we've talked about how you've become, in your story, how your case study is how you've become a Scrum Master after 3 years. How important is a college slash university degree versus certificates for a Scrum Master specifically?
I mean, I'm gonna talk about Romania
Yeah,
now,
please.
uh,
Okay.
and there's no Scrum Master role in, in the university, so you're not gonna hear about Scrum Master anywhere in uni.
Do they teach Scrum at all?
No,
I see.
they teach programming languages, and not even more. They teach. I mean, in my case, they basically teach you some basic SQL, and then they teach you .NET.
Right.
So how important is it? It's almost irrelevant. Where there's a relevance for it is usually if you don't have a degree in IT, then chances are that you will be overlooked
Right.
by companies because they're usually looking for that, and most of the job descriptions that I've seen in Romania, it's one of the main things they ask, like a relevant degree
I see.
in this
So
domain.
it's not for the knowledge that it gives you, it's more for getting you noticed.
Yeah, it's basically for getting you noticed, and there's an extra boost.
Right.
If you have a degree, you are basically there's a 10% tax return that you're eligible for.
Tax return. Oh, right. So it's a government incentive to actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Okay. I see.
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So in terms of, so in Romania, you'd say it would be kind of useful to get noticed more than the knowledge itself, and probably get that kind of government kickback. Uh, but because the knowledge doesn't is not necessarily relevant, I'm guessing. Well, it depends from country to country, I'm guessing, but it's not essential for the role itself.
Well, no, but then again, I would not recommend you go into Scrum directly.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, I mean, you if you want to be a programmer or if you want to be a tester, well, if you want to be a tester, university may not help you either. But if you want to be a programmer, I guess it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And you learn things. But in my opinion, I found the things to be outdated. And in IT, you do not afford that luxury to learn outdated stuff,
Yeah, it's
usually.
what version of the Scrum Guide are we on now? So
Yeah, I mean, the Scrum Guide is updated yearly or once every 2 years or so. But like there's like you look at Angular, and Angular when I started programming, it was like at version 2, and then when I was done with programming a few years later, it was at version 12. So so
so
so yeah,
it's
there's
impossible for a university then to keep up with the latest kind of knowledge in just
yeah
the
they
structure.
they usually go for general stuff.
Yeah.
So a, a lot of backend stuff like .NET, like I mentioned, C sharp. There's a strong logic behind it, and then you learn that logic basically.
Okay.
So that's what they teach you mostly. But if you wanna work in front end, for example, that's not gonna be very helpful
Yeah, I see.
at all.
All right. Okay, so let's say you've gotten a few certificates. You're in Romania. You did get your university kind of diploma. You did your PSM 1, Professional Scrum Master 1 from Scrum.org. So you have
Good start.
yeah. So you're officially kind of a Scrum Master in on paper. How do you, well, you apply for jobs? How do you prepare for your first interview?
Well, first of all, prepare by not putting all your eggs in one basket. So have as many CVs out there as possible,
Right.
apply as much as possible, and then let's say you get your first actual interview. Now there's a few things that, I mean, it's more helpful to have experience, because usually most of the questions that you're asked and that I ask whenever I do interviews are from experience, like have you encountered stuff like that. I also look for people to learn from their mistakes, so I look for hints. I don't ask the question, do you learn from your mistakes? I look for hints where, for example, I like to give scenarios, by the way. So I like to give scenarios like, you have a team of X amount of people. uh, let's say you have a team of 7 people, and then you have a product owner on the side, and then uh, you get into that team, and the main problem over there, according to your boss, is that the team always leaves at 5 o'clock sharp. They don't stay a minute extra. They don't really discuss much with the product owner, and they're always behind on their sprints. And then that's all I say. And obviously there's a lot of red flags on my behalf as well, because I wanna see how people think. So I'm not gonna make it easy.
Yeah.
I want to be challenged. I want to ask, like, why is it a problem if people leave at 5, for example? And I just want to see that question. So there's no right answer that I'm expecting, but I do expect thinking outside the box. So the scenario that I've just given you, that's completely made up. What I'm looking for is an approach. So as a Scrum Master, you have to have a toolbox. And one of the most basic tools is your approach to a problem. How do you approach that problem? How do you tackle it? And you're just gonna go into a team, and I've seen this mistake happen a lot of times. You're going into a team with an idea of what's wrong, and I used to do that a lot. And if my boss will tell me that, yeah, go into this team because they're always behind, because they're never doing their job, because they're always going home, and blah blah blah. And more often than not, that's not the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you need to dig deeper, but you're just gonna set obstacles for yourself if you're assuming already what the problem is. So that's, I think I've gone too deep,
Yeah,
but
I know.
that's
No,
that's
no, no,
that's
that's fair. It makes sense. Like keep an open mind and try kind of don't chase or I don't grab the first bone that gets thrown at you. Kind of look around for the
yeah,
real treasure
yeah,
or real problem.
yeah. Sometimes because we have our own biases as people, and when you go into it with your own bias, it's quite hard to step back out of it
Yeah.
unless there's an obvious change. But be aware of that. Now let's come back to preparing for for the interview. So if you don't have experience, I think it's really hard to make it as a Scrum Master, because you do not have,
W-
other than the Scrum guide, you do not have a lot going for you.
Yeah, and to clarify, not necessarily like Scrum Master experience. Like you don't need to be born with it. You need any type of IT experience.
So yeah, you need any type of IT experience. Now, if you go into a Scrum Master role with a QA experience, then you have some knowledge of changes, of transformation, because believe me, the whole team is involved in this. So you, as a Scrum Master, you are an agent of change. However, you may be just the the person that pushes the whole mountain, but it needs to move by its own. I'm not sure if that's the best metaphor, but or dominoes. So you're just the person that pushes the dominoes, but they kind of do their own thing. So if you don't have experience, I would say get some experience first in IT, and then if you have some experience, how to best prepare for an interview is, first of all, look at yourself, look at all the skills that you have acquired throughout your whole life. Now, I'm actually gonna do in parallel a case study of myself.
Yeah.
So for me, for example, I was an actor, and before being an actor, I was quite shy. So being an actor helped me bring out my extrovert, I guess. Uh, and being able to speak in front of an audience, or being able to actually being to a lot of auditions and learning how to sell yourself, that's also another thing. I was able to bring out the best in me, even if I wasn't the best for that role, but it looked a lot better.
Yeah.
So if you've done anything that's beneficial to you as a person, like if you're super attentive to details, or if you're a super tidy person, like even that's a huge plus. uh, if you read a lot, if you're a fast learner, if so, look at yourself,
Yeah.
look at all the benefits, like all the qualities that you have, and then be aware of them, because you will be you will use them,
Yeah, you'll need them.
and then work out a way in which you can use them. So how I'm using my skills is that I'm a people person, and because of that, my let's say my value as a scrum master will be more utilized in working with the people, working with each individual team member, helping them change, or realizing where there's problems or unspoken words, and helping to drive that forward. For other scrum masters, they have a huge amount of knowledge with a huge number of books read, and they're just going to tell you, oh, let's use this approach because this works. And I'm amazed by them, and I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to read as much as I can, but yeah, right now where I'm stuck is I am a people person. You should be a people person, but yeah, I'm going directly at the person. I'm not using a specific textbook methodology in my approach.
No, fair enough. One thing that I do want to touch on, you mentioned that you were yourself an actor and you were shy before. That kind of helped you sell yourself. Would you then recommend, or is it important to develop your communication skills? I think so, but kind of what do you think on?
Is Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, fair enough. So, and how would you? Because if you basically finish high school, go to IT university, get your developer degree, as a developer or a QA tester basically for a year, and then step into Scrum, at IT is not exactly the place that offers you that kind of to build up that communication skill set. Where would you recommend then people try to get other jobs or try to get experience from elsewhere as before stepping into a career like this?
I mean, don't go to other jobs just to have that experience. uh, First of all, yeah. But what worked for me, and it also worked for actually a lot of people I know, thinking about it now, is put yourself out there. Just dare to try, dare to put yourself out there. uh
In what way? Like to be more
yeah,
like,
I'm kind of stuck between sharing my experience or trying to go for a metaphor. But the first time, so I went uh I went into you I've done acting in the UK,
right?
and when I went in there, like the first day, they made us do a play. And honestly, I have never ever been in a play up until that point. I got the audition because YouTube helped me a lot, and I learned how to I don't know how to get into the character and all that. So I impressed up until that point, but I did not impress with my experience. So first day, boom, you're on a stage, and there were like 40 people looking at us, and we had to improvise something. We had like a picture, it was a painting, and we just had to improvise a 5 minute story from that painting. And funny enough, I ended up being the main character in that play. And I recall that moment, and I think I'm gonna remember it all my life. I was so scared, like, what's happening? I thought they would teach us to be actors, not just throw us in front of the audience. So I'm usually an overthinker as well. So as much as I kind of tried to think my way out of it, or try to think how it would be or how I should be, I just at some point I just went blank,
Yeah,
and I just said, "All right, let's do
to
it."
jump.
Yeah. So doing that jump, it became a habit from that point onwards. So it became easier and easier. And when I was officially an actor, and I've done a lot of plays in front of an audience of like 600, 700 people, usually that's the switch. You just say, okay, let's do it. And then you're in that mentality. So, yeah, put yourself out there as much as possible, in the sense that, for example, in my town here, there's a meeting about how to publicly speak, how to speak in front of of an audience, and that's a weekly thing. And there's a group of people that do it, uh, Toastmasters, I think they're called.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
Uh,
So kind of groups like that, events like that. And
Groups like that, or even try to, I don't know, try to be the one that's more active in your group of friends. You're going out, and just make a conscious choice of doing something, telling a story, and having the audience listen to you. Well, the audience, but your friends. Just see if they do, how well they do it, when's kind of the point where you're losing them. Just see how good you are.
nice.
Even at that, something basic.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating how a lot of seemingly strange skills kind of come together and kind of give you a huge advantage as a Scrum Master. So it's
Yeah. I mean, I I'm actually gonna, I mean, I know you're asking me questions, but I'm actually gonna turn this around, and I want you to share the story of how you learned to kind of step out of the whole introvert
yes,
mentality, and
yes.
then
We enough that fair enough.
get out of the comfort
Yeah.
zone.
Well, I don't think I stepped out of the introvert mentality. I'm still an introvert and I will be all my life. But for me, it was desperation. So I was in a strange place where effectively I needed a job, like, and I mean ASAP. The only job that I found was in sales. Me being introvert, like struggling to hold a conversation, was, you can imagine how desperate I was just to accept that. They accepted me with pretty much no interview. Just looked at, oh, you have a university degree, you must know a few things. Here you go, you're in. Uh, First 3 months, I did not sign a single contract, did not make a single sale, and I was genuinely, the way that I went about it is it was home improvements. It was kind of things for around the house projects, basically, for the company. I learned the technical side of it inside and out. Hello, was that I got disconnected there?
Yeah, you got disconnected.
All right,
Welcome back.
thank you. What was the last thing that you heard?
Well, you learned the technical side of it, the
Yeah,
inside and out.
yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, fair enough. I learned the technical side of everything that we do, the inside and out, and genuinely what my switch was for the, I'll always remember the first contract that I signed is I just switched off. In my head, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Like, I was even thinking, okay, am I applying to McDonald's to just flip burgers? I was not there. I was physically there. My mouth was moving, like I knew the technical side inside and out. And just because I didn't focus on being in front of the customer and kind of communicating, I think I just delivered everything with confidence enough that, like, the next thing that I remember when I kind of snapped out of it, I was shaking his hand. It was like I signed my first contract. And I think, yeah, it kind of went from that. It was shock, that proving to myself that, okay, this actually can work. And I think once I got more confident in doing the uncomfortable side of things, which is the sales, the talking side, everything else that I kind of had, I have the organizational skills, I have everything else. Basically everything else just went smoothly, to the point where I became consistent from customer to customer. I kind of learned how to just switch myself off, my worries
Yeah.
off. There's a lot of metaphors, especially when you go into sales. They'll try to teach you a lot of techniques of putting all your stuff in a bag, leaving it in the car, forget about your life, forget about everything. It's all about the customer in front of you. Stuff like, there's a lot of kind of techniques that they can teach you, but yeah, it's effectively that was the communication side of things. That's how I learned it.
So basically, the pattern that I'm seeing here, and it's a true one, is take a giant leap,
Yeah.
and it gets easier.
Oh, get uncomfortable, I would say.
Get
That's, yeah.
uncomfortable. Yeah. So yeah, that's the answer to your question.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, okay. So I guess we gave him two case studies for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. That covers, I guess, the basics of it. Is there anything that you think we would, or anybody that starts off, that would want to start off, would need to know?
Phew, that's a tough one. I mean, first of all, I would say if you want to get into this role, there's a few misconceptions about the role, to put it simply. So a lot of times I heard people, oh, there's the, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about him.
Yeah. Call him over. Uh, there's,
Yeah. Keep going.
yeah, there's a lot of times that I've heard people saying that as a Scrum Master, you're not doing anything, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, which is wrong. And there's also a lot of times I heard people saying that you don't need to have any IT knowledge to be a Scrum Master. It's true to some extent, but
It's a huge disadvantage.
it's a huge disadvantage, and you're gonna run with a stiff leg or something like that. So it's the best things you can do is make sure make sure you understand what's happening behind the scenes. Now, in for anyone who wants to be a Scrum Master, it's it's a role that really it's appealing from the outside, but there is a lot of work behind the curtains. And yes, you need to, I mean, I would say you need to be a people person. I
Mhm.
keep saying that, but it's so important because you're, I mean, as a developer, as a tester, you are working in a team, but you are mostly gonna focus on the code or the bugs.
Yeah.
As as a Scrum Master, you're mostly gonna focus on the people
Mm.
most of the times.
Would you agree with kind of of this kind of just came to me, so it might just be silly, but
Random.
it's one of those roles in which people don't notice you until things start going wrong, and then they start blaming you. Like,
I've never,
is a good
yeah,
Scrum Master kind of almost invisible to the bigger organization because everything just runs smoothly?
yeah, I think a good Scrum Master should be invisible.
Mhm.
perhaps should is not the best word that I can
or
use, but
could potentially be?
potentially could. I'm saying should not in the sense that you shouldn't be noticed for how good you are. I'm saying should in the sense that the team should seamlessly be delivering value without any support, without impediments, without anything. So
Yeah.
at that point, yeah, you're amazing as a Scrum Master. But it's extremely hard to measure how good of a Scrum Master you are, even if that happens, because who's to say that, let's say right now you don't have a lot of experience, Vlad, in Scrum, and you're gonna get assigned a team that's just amazing, like full senior people, everyone just knows what they're doing. They've worked together for 20 years or whatever, and they're just delivering value. How good are you? You would never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, you're not gonna get that utopia, but mostly you're gonna get challenges. But yeah, it's definitely a role where there's a lot of. I've never been blamed,
Right.
but I was trying to think if there was any situations where it got really bad to be blamed. So and I don't think I ended up in any of those situations. But no, I haven't been blamed just on my own, just by myself. What I would say is that yeah, there's a lot of doubting yourself.
Yeah.
And you will blame yourself. You will be the one that's gonna be your worst enemy in this job, in this role, because and I keep doing this and I hate myself for doing this, but I keep saying, why did not I don't know, why did I not stop that meeting when we clearly went off track? Why did I not choose that approach? Why did I not coach for that OKR that was, I don't know, it was clearly poorly written. Sorry, it's a bit late, but I still kind of took the easier path and just let it be, rather than say let's look back on that one because no one seemed sure, and then I clearly felt it, and then I run it back in my head. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. So you're gonna hate yourself quite a lot.
But I guess that's a good sign, or that's necessary, because that's how you learn. That's how you continuously learn and self improve. If you're comfortable with yourself and the role you're doing and the job you're doing, I think you're gonna
Yeah,
stagnate a lot.
yeah, but you need to learn. So for this role, you actually need to learn a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
All right. And then, okay, maybe last question here. This is not after you've become a Scrum Master. In your opinion, how often should you change jobs?
You need to evaluate where you want to get, first of all. So if you're in a point where you want to be a really good Scrum Master and you need a lot of knowledge, you need to look at your current situation and basically ask yourself two questions. Am I learning? Compare yourself to 3 months ago. Have you learned anything?
Hmm.
And then the second question is, am I happy with what I'm earning? Now, that's a tough one to answer because it's always subjective. But if you're going to start comparing and you're going to start looking at other offers, and you may have two or three offers on the table, then go back to your initial questions. In this company, do I think I'm going to learn? And that's something that you can do in the interview, because the interview should be a conversation. It should not be just one sided. Feel free to ask questions. I strongly suggest you ask questions. So yeah, will I learn more than I'm learning here? And do they pay me more or less? Because sometimes it's a lot more uh, beneficial for you to take the job where you learn more at first and get paid less, rather than get paid a huge amount of money and then just do the same thing over and over, just one team, just repeat, the team is doing good or whatever, and you're not really, you're in your comfort zone still, because at some point you may leave that job, or they may fire you, or who knows what's happening, and then you're left with 10 years experience and little knowledge, whilst someone coming with 3 years experience and has a lot of knowledge will outrank you.
No, yeah, that makes sense. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's similar to something I can't remember where I've read this, but I've read this is like a good job should offer you at least one of two things. Like you said, is pretty much rephrasing what you said: learning experience or amazing pay. If they offer both, you hit the jackpot. If it offers one of the two, it's a good company. If it offers none of the two, it's time to redo your CV and start applying.
Yeah, just be careful. Don't be greedy with that. I mean, you're in IT and you may think, oh, this keeps going up, up and up. But don't be greedy. Just find what good pay is for you
Yeah.
at first. And I mean, I suggest look at the knowledge part first. Look at the learning part, because if you're learning, you also may have a purpose there, and then having a purpose, it makes the Mondays a lot easier rather than coming in just for the paycheck.
No, yeah, that's fair enough. Absolutely. All right, perfect. Yeah, I think we pretty much we can end it there. That's a pretty good beginner's guide for the Scrum
Yeah,
Master.
I mean, if we find out there's more questions
Oh yeah, we can.
and some specific questions, we can even do a follow-up episode or stuff like that.
That's perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Andre.
Nice, thank you.